Every night when your head hits the pillow and your eyes drift closed, you think you're simply falling asleep. You think your brain is shutting down for rest. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you've ever been told? What if everything you've been taught about sleep is actually a cover story, a carefully designed illusion to keep you from discovering your greatest spiritual power? Because the truth is this: when you sleep, you're not just unconscious, you're traveling. Your consciousness detaches from your body and journeys into other dimensions, other realms, other timelines. And this isn't theory. It's ancient knowledge, suppressed, hidden, buried. Because if you ever remembered who you truly are when you sleep, you'd become impossible to control. You see, sleep isn't rest, it's a rehearsal for death, but not in the morbid way you've been taught to fear. It's a doorway, a nightly departure from the physical body that mimics exactly what happens when your soul leaves at the moment of death. And here's the wildest part: you've done it over and over again. But you've forgotten, because that's exactly what they want. From the ancient Egyptians to the Tibetan monks, from the mystery schools of Atlantis to the hidden manuscripts locked away by secret societies, this knowledge has always been known: that the dream world is not fiction. It is real, it is sacred, and it is the place your consciousness returns to every single night. But you were programmed to believe dreams are random noise, that they're nothing more than scattered memories and brain static. Why? Because if you knew the truth, if you realized that your dream self is your true self, then everything around you would collapse. The fear, the control, the manipulation, gone in an instant. There's a reason ancient spiritual texts talk about the astral plane, a reason why every mystical tradition, from the Gnostics to the Hermeticists, had teachings on dream states, soul travel, and out-of-body experiences. Because your body may be still, but your soul is moving, watching, learning, awakening. But ask yourself, why is this never taught? Why is dream interpretation reduced to entertainment? Why do mainstream scientists avoid talking about astral projection like it's pseudoscience, even when government agencies like the CIA have been studying it for decades? There's a reason. Because once you know where you go during sleep, you'll stop fearing death. You'll stop fearing the unknown, and once you stop fearing, you stop obeying. When you fall asleep, your brain shifts into theta and delta frequencies, waves that open a portal between the physical and the non-physical. It's like tuning a radio. Suddenly you're no longer limited by your five senses. You're no longer confined by the rules of gravity, time, or logic. You become something else. Something bigger. Something ancient. And if you've ever had a dream that felt more real than real, that's because it was. You weren't imagining it. You were there. You visited a dimension that exists parallel to this one, a place where thoughts shape reality instantly, a realm where you can meet other souls, revisit past lives, and glimpse your future timelines. The astral world is not fantasy. It's the next layer of existence, and you go there every night. You just don't remember. But there was a book, a forbidden one, a book that didn't just hint at this truth, it revealed it. A manuscript so powerful that it was burned, banned, buried by every institution that wanted to keep you in the dark. Because it didn't just talk about dreams, it explained them. It mapped the entire structure of sleep, death, and the afterlife. It showed exactly what happens when consciousness leaves the body, and it taught how to stay aware, how to wake up inside the dream and take control. This book, which has been reconstructed through fragments of Egyptian funerary texts, Tibetan dream yoga, Gnostic gospels, and the secret teachings of the Hermetic order, makes one thing crystal clear. You are not your body. You never were. You are awareness, pure consciousness, having a temporary experience in physical form. And every night your soul tries to remind you, through symbols, through metaphors, through echoes of past and future, but you dismiss them, because society taught you to. You were trained to ignore your dreams, trained to laugh them off. It's just a dream, you say, but what if just a dream was the most profound journey your soul takes every 24 hours? Your ancestors didn't take dreams lightly. They saw them as divine messages, initiations, and warnings. The Egyptians believed that the dream world was a dimension you entered through the duat, a hidden realm accessed during the hours of sleep. The Tibetans believed that the more lucid and aware you became in your dreams, the more control you gained in death. Because the same path you travel in sleep is the one you'll walk when your body dies. But it gets deeper. Because these ancient teachings weren't just mystical, they were practical. They taught how to retain awareness after the body falls asleep. They taught how to exit the body consciously. And most importantly, they taught how to navigate the dream world with purpose. What if you could do the same? What if you could remember? Because here's the secret most people don't know. You've already astral projected. You've already left your body. You just weren't conscious when it happened. That feeling of falling right as you drift off, that sudden jolt that pulls you awake, that's your consciousness misaligning with your physical body during the exit. That floating sensation you sometimes feel when you're between sleep and waking, that's the start of separation. You are doing it, you've always been doing it, you just haven't been trained to notice. And that's exactly how they've kept you blind. Because if you were taught from childhood to track your dreams, to map the patterns, to understand the symbols, and to awaken inside the dream, by now you'd be a master traveler, a soul navigator, a conscious explorer of other dimensions. And that's dangerous. To them. Because once you master the dream world, you start asking different questions. You start remembering things you're not supposed to remember, like past lives, soul contracts, timelines, the architecture of reality itself. And suddenly, the 9-to-5 system starts to look like a prison. The media starts to look like a spell. The rules of this world start to feel optional. Because you've touched something else, something real, something infinite. And once you've touched it, you can't go back. There's a reason the ancients created rituals around sleep. They didn't just lie down and hope to dream. They prepared. They cleansed their bodies. They recited mantras. They placed sacred symbols near their heads. Because they knew what was coming. They understood that sleep was a passage, a nightly ritual of leaving this world and entering another. And they wanted to arrive with intention, not confusion. You, on the other hand, were taught to collapse into bed exhausted, to flood your brain with screens until the last possible second, to go unconscious. Because unconsciousness is safe. Unconsciousness is predictable. But awareness? Awareness is dangerous. It breaks the spell. Think about how many times you've woken up from a dream that felt more real than your entire day. The colors were vivid. The emotions were intense. You met people you swore you knew. Maybe you even saw places you've never been in waking life, yet they felt hauntingly familiar. That's not fantasy. That's memory. That's your soul remembering what your conscious mind can't explain. Because while your physical body is resting, your consciousness is navigating a realm of fluid time and malleable space. It's scanning possibilities, exploring alternate timelines, reconnecting with your higher self, sometimes even working through karmic patterns that your waking mind isn't ready to face. You felt this before, that strange pull in your gut when you meet someone new, and it feels like you've known them forever. That déjà vu so powerful it makes your heart race. That vivid dream that keeps returning to you over and over again, like a message trying to break through. It's not random. It's the residue of where you've been, when you thought you were just asleep. And this is where it gets truly profound. Because sleep, in its deepest form, is not escape. It's access. It's access to the truth of who you are. A multidimensional being, a soul with layers upon layers of experience, stretching across time, space, and incarnation. And every night you return to those layers. The only question is whether you'll remember. The forbidden book, the one pieced together from ancient sources across centuries, reveals that the soul doesn't dream in metaphors, it dreams in codes, symbols that bypass the logical brain and speak directly to the subconscious. A lion in your dream might not just be a lion, it might be a representation of power you've forgotten, A recurring hallway might not be just architecture, it could be a portal. A repeating face could be a guide or a version of you from another reality. Your dreams are encrypted, and the more you pay attention, the more you begin to decode the truth that this physical world is just one layer of a much larger dream, and once you realize that, everything changes. That's why this knowledge has been hidden. Because when you reclaim your sleep, you reclaim your sovereignty. When you begin to navigate your nights with intention, you're no longer under their spell. You become lucid. Not just in your dreams, but in your waking life. You start to see the illusions around you, the scripts, the programming, the limitations that were never really yours. Imagine this. You go to bed tonight with intention. You tell yourself, I will remember where I go. I will awaken inside the dream. And you do. You find yourself in a realm more vibrant than anything you've ever seen. You realize you can move without walking, fly without wings. You sense a presence beside you. An old friend, a guide, a version of yourself from beyond time. And suddenly, it all makes sense. This is who you are. This is what you've forgotten. And when you wake up, that memory doesn't leave. It stays with you, it colors your day, it shifts your choices. You move through life differently. Not like someone hoping to survive, but like someone who remembers their power. There's a reason why children have such vivid dreams, why they remember their past lives until we train them to forget. There's a reason they talk to invisible friends, describe flying through the sky, and know things they've never been taught. Their connection hasn't been severed yet. They haven't been programmed out of their awareness. But as they grow, they're told it was just a dream, and so they let go, and the door slowly closes. But that door can be opened again. The ancient Tibetan practice of dream yoga was created for exactly this purpose. Not just to lucid dream, but to train the soul for death. Because death, according to the masters, is not the end. It's a transition into the same dimension you visit in sleep, the bardo, the in-between. And if you can maintain awareness in that realm, you can control your passage. You can choose whether to return, whether to evolve, whether to ascend. This is what the Forbidden Book teaches, that sleep is a dress rehearsal for death. And if you master it now, you transcend fear forever. And yet, modern science scoffs, even while their own institutions, hidden deep in classified programs, have been researching out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and the mechanics of consciousness leaving the body. You can find the declassified documents if you look hard enough. The Gateway Process, the Monroe Institute, government-funded studies showing that human consciousness can travel beyond space and time. Why do they bury this knowledge? Because a population that understands the truth about sleep cannot be controlled. You can't scare someone who understands death. You can't manipulate someone who remembers their multidimensional nature. And you certainly can't sell distractions to someone who wakes up every morning with a message from their higher self. So they poison your water, they flood your eyes with blue light, they bombard your subconscious with programming that makes you forget. Because the moment you fall asleep without awareness, they win. But not anymore. You can take it back. You can begin tonight. Start simple. Before you sleep, speak to yourself, out loud or in your mind. Say, tonight I will remember my dreams. Tonight I will awaken within them. Keep a notebook beside your bed. As soon as you wake, even if it's fragments. Write it down. Don't worry if it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to. It's a code. And with time, the code becomes clearer. You might start seeing patterns, symbols that repeat, people who appear again and again, places that call you back. That's your astral map unfolding. That's your soul showing you where it's been and where it wants to go. And if you choose to follow it, you'll remember more than just your dreams. You'll remember who you are. There's a reason you sometimes wake up more tired than when you went to bed. It's not because your body didn't rest. It's because your consciousness has been busy. You've been traveling, navigating, learning, fighting through energetic debris that doesn't even belong to you. Some of it karmic, some of it ancestral, some of it connected to the collective unconscious you're tethered to, whether you know it or not, and yet you're told it's all in your head. You're told that dreams are just psychological noise. But deep down, something in you knows that's not true. Think about the times you've had dreams so vivid they stayed with you for years. Scenes that etched themselves into your memory like waking life never could. Faces you can still picture, emotions that hit you like a wave. Why do you remember those so clearly? Because they weren't dreams. They were visits, encounters, missions. You weren't just dreaming. You were somewhere. And if you've ever experienced sleep paralysis, that moment when your body is frozen but your mind is fully awake, sensing something in the room with you, something watching, something real, then you've already glimpsed the border. You've already touched the veil. What they call sleep paralysis is often your awareness catching up with your consciousness mid-travel. You're in between, half here, half there, and what you feel isn't imagined. It's the presence of another dimension bleeding through the cracks. Most people panic in that state, but you don't have to, because once you understand what's happening, you can use it. You can stabilize, you can exit, you can rise, and in that rising you can see things about yourself, about reality, about the universe that no textbook will ever teach you. Your body is a shell, a sacred vessel, yes, but temporary. Your consciousness is not inside your brain. That's just a receiver, a filter. You are not the thoughts moving through your mind, you are the observer behind them. And when you sleep, that observer unplugs from the physical and returns to its source. That source has many names: the astral plane, the etheric field, the dream world, but they all point to the same truth. There is a place beyond this place, and you visit it every night. This forbidden book, call it the Astral Codex if you want, describes sleep as the most regular, most accessible spiritual experience available to every human being. It's the one portal that no authority can take from you. You don't need a priest, a temple, or a guru. All you need is stillness. All you need is trust. Trust that what you've been told isn't the whole story. Trust that what you feel in your bones, what you've always suspected, is true. You were never meant to forget your nights. That forgetting is the result of interference, of spiritual noise, of mental clutter and environmental poisoning. But there are ways to clear it. There are practices that open the door again. Simple breath work before bed, pineal gland activation, sacred sound frequencies, visualization techniques passed down from ancient lineages. These aren't trends. These are keys. Keys to the realms you've been locked out of since birth. Imagine lying down tonight and instead of drifting into oblivion, you begin to feel your energy body loosen. A gentle buzzing, a floating sensation, your mind clear, calm, focused. You see yourself roll out, not physically but consciously, and you're hovering above your bed. You turn around. You see your body still asleep. And in that moment you know you are not it. You are not the name, not the story, not the struggle. You are awareness, pure, boundless, unafraid. And then the room fades. You're no longer bound by walls. You move, not with steps but with thought. You think of a mountain, and you're there. You feel the presence of someone you love who's passed on, and suddenly they appear, not as a memory, but as a soul, alive, luminous, communicating not with words but with feeling, and for the first time you don't question it. You remember. You remember this language, this way of being. It's always been inside you, you just had to wake up. When you return, you don't just wake up, you come back. And with you comes a piece of the realm you touched, a download, a shift, a knowing that lingers all day. You look at the world differently. You sense when people are lying. You feel the energy in the room. You trust your intuition more, because something in you has been reactivated. And that's when the dream stops being a dream and starts becoming a mission. Because now you're not just sleeping, you're traveling with purpose. You're healing, gathering knowledge, rewriting timelines, reclaiming parts of yourself you lost lifetimes ago. You become the lucid traveler, the conscious dreamer, the soul who remembers. And this is exactly what the ancient texts were trying to teach us before they were buried or rewritten. The Book of the Dead wasn't about fear. It was a map, a guide for navigating the unseen. The Emerald Tablets didn't just talk about alchemy. They revealed the transformation of the soul through dimensional movement. The Gnostic scriptures didn't just rebel against the church. They taught that the material world is a simulation, and the real world begins when you close your eyes. This knowledge wasn't lost, it was taken, hidden by those who understood its power. Because if every human being realized they were a multi-dimensional traveler, if every person began to remember where they actually go when they sleep, the system would crumble overnight. You can't trap a free soul. You can't sell fear to someone who visits eternity every night. You can't sell distractions to someone who walks among stars and spirits in their sleep. So they do everything they can to keep you blind. But the moment you remember, it's over. The veil lifts, and no one can put it back. And maybe that's why you're here. Maybe you didn't click on this by accident. Maybe your soul brought you here as a reminder. A nudge, a spark. Because you've been drifting, going to sleep and forgetting, feeling like something's missing but not knowing what. This is what's missing. You. The real you. The you that watches yourself sleep. The you that flies through portals. The you that speaks to beings of light and darkness with equal courage. The you that knows this world is not the only world. And now that you've remembered, there's no turning back. So now you've remembered, now you see the cracks in the story you've been told. Sleep is not unconsciousness, it's the doorway they never wanted you to walk through with awareness. And the moment you stop treating your nights like nothing more than downtime, you begin the transformation. You start reclaiming the most powerful hours of your life, the hours where your body surrenders, but your soul awakens. It's in those hours where the veil thins, where you're closest to your original state, unbound by flesh, unfiltered by logic, untouched by programming. Your consciousness stretches out like a beam of light across dimensions, scanning for connection, for memory, for meaning. And the more you notice, the more you bring back. Images, feelings, sounds that don't belong to this world. Glimpses of realities where you made different choices. Moments from other lives that still echo in your heart like distant thunder. That's what dreams really are, not fantasies, not hallucinations, but data. Spiritual data, downloads your waking mind can't always process, so it gets translated into symbols. Your childhood home, a loved one you lost, a staircase you keep climbing but never reach the top. These aren't just fragments of your psyche, they are echoes from the astral, keys to the library of your soul. The Forbidden Book calls this process dimensional remembering. It says you are always dreaming, even when you're awake. But in sleep the filters drop, the noise fades, and your true awareness steps forward like a shadow that's been waiting for you to notice it. And when you do, it speaks, not in words, but in knowing, a kind of inner certainty you can't explain but can't ignore. You wake up and just know something changed, and that knowing is power, the kind of power that terrifies those who profit from your sleepwalking. Because here's the secret they don't want you to hear. There is a war on your consciousness, a silent war. A war that isn't fought with weapons but with distractions. Blue light that hijacks your circadian rhythm, chemicals that calcify your pineal gland, content that trains your brain to forget what real meaning feels like. And they've made forgetting normal, they've made spiritual amnesia look like success. You wake up groggy, disconnected, chasing coffee and checking your phone before you even remember who you are. That's by design, because the moment you wake up and remember your dream, and why you dream, you start to break the spell. You start to wonder what else they've kept from you. And if you wonder long enough, you start to see it. The cracks, the manipulations, the code. Because yes, reality is a code, and sleep is when you access the source. Every night, when you shift into theta, your consciousness plugs into the quantum field, the space where all potential exists, the place beyond the veil of form, And in that space, intention is law. Thought is architecture, emotion is movement. This is where manifestations are born, not in vision boards or wishful thinking, but in the astral blueprint your soul imprints during sleep. This is why so many people feel stuck. They work hard in the physical but neglect the spiritual. They forget that dreams are the original reality. The ancients knew this. That's why initiation always began in sleep. That's why mystery schools trained their adepts to dream consciously before they were ever allowed to speak the sacred words. Because if you couldn't command your consciousness in the dream state, you weren't ready to handle it in waking life. Power without awareness becomes corruption, but awareness without power, that's what most people live in. They sense the truth, but they don't remember how to move in it. But you can. You were born with the ability, you've just been distracted out of it. And it's not your fault. The system was built that way. From childhood, you were taught that the physical world is the only world, that what can't be measured isn't real, that dreams are imagination and death is the end. But you knew better. You felt it. Those moments when time stopped, when your body tingled for no reason, when you knew someone was about to call or you felt someone watching you but no one was there. Those weren't glitches. Those were reminders. You are a multi-dimensional being and sleep is your reset. It's when the performance ends and the real you comes out. The you that knows how to fly. The you that remembers past lifetimes. The you that's seen the architecture of reality from the outside looking in. And that version of you doesn't fear death. It doesn't chase status. It doesn't need permission to exist. It knows. And the more you connect to that version of yourself, the more this reality bends. Not in dramatic movie magic ways, but in subtle sacred shifts. People treat you differently. Synchronicities increase. You speak something and it shows up. Not because you're lucky, but because you're finally aligned. Because your astral self and your physical self are no longer out of sync. That's why the dream world matters. It's not escapism, it's navigation. It's where you rewrite karma, where you meet your guides, where you face your shadow without judgment. And if you keep going, if you keep showing up with awareness and intention, something miraculous happens. You begin to lucid dream your life. You wake up in the middle of the day and realize you have the same power here that you have in the astral. The power to choose, to shift, to collapse timelines with a thought. That's the secret this forbidden book whispered, that sleep is a classroom, a temple, a battleground, and a mirror. It shows you who you really are, not the mask, not the avatar, but the architect, the original dreamer. And if you're the dreamer, then this world is your dream. You've been conditioned to believe that dreams are meaningless, that they're fragments of stress, leftover thoughts, mental junk the brain needs to sweep away. But what if I told you the opposite is true? What if your waking life is the dream, and your dreams are the awakening? Because when you sleep, you aren't shutting down, you're logging in, plugging into the cosmic mainframe where your soul remembers everything. And if you stop brushing it off, if you begin to listen, you'll notice the patterns, the guidance, the signs. You dream about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and the next day they message you. You see symbols that don't make sense until later, when they show up in your waking life. You feel something warning you in your sleep, only to realize that warning saved you from a real mistake. These aren't coincidences. They're echoes. Messages sent across the veil from your higher self, your guides, or from you in another timeline. And the more you honor these dreams, the louder they become, the clearer, the more consistent. You build a relationship with the unseen. You start treating your sleep as sacred, not as escape but as initiation. You become intentional with the space between worlds, and in that intention the universe responds. There's a forgotten teaching that says each time you fall asleep, your soul reviews your energy, what you felt that day, what you avoided, what you learned, and then it chooses what realm to enter, not randomly, but based on resonance. Low vibrations pull you into chaotic, fragmented dream states. High frequencies open the gates to astral temples, healing chambers, and celestial landscapes that defy imagination. This is why your emotional state before bed matters more than you think. That argument, that fear, that distraction, it determines the direction of your journey, and so does your focus. What you think about in those final moments before sleep becomes the compass for where you're taken. You can fall asleep angry and wake up exhausted, or you can fall asleep in gratitude and wake up with clarity, insights, and energy that feels like it came from somewhere else, because it did. You weren't meant to go into the dream world empty. You were meant to enter with purpose. Like the ancient dreamwalkers, the shamans, the mystics. They didn't just sleep, they traveled. They asked questions before bed and received answers by morning. They met with ancestors, they received visions of what was coming, and they didn't doubt it, because they knew the dream world was real. As real as breath, as real as light, as real as you. Some of the most advanced civilizations had entire systems built around the dream realms. In Egypt, priests would spend nights in sacred temples, seeking visions to guide the pharaohs. In indigenous cultures, children were trained from a young age to understand their dreams as spiritual teachings. In the East, monks would go into deep meditation until their bodies fell asleep, but their awareness stayed online. This wasn't superstition, this was science, spiritual science. And yet here we are, in a modern world that has lost that knowing. We've traded sacred sleep for scroll addiction. We fall asleep to noise, to flickering lights, to artificial frequencies that hijack our energy and disrupt the natural process, and we wonder why we wake up lost, disconnected, numb. We've been cut off from our nightly access point to higher intelligence and told it was never there to begin with, but it was, and it still is. The Forbidden Book made this clear. That every human being has a tether, a silver cord that links the physical body to the astral. And when the body sleeps, that tether loosens, not breaks, not disconnects, but stretches. It allows the soul to wander while still remaining connected. And during that wandering, you're free, you're limitless. But only if you're aware, only if you're not trapped in the fog of forgetfulness they've programmed into your mind since you were a child. They don't teach you how to dream, they don't teach you how to decode the visions, because if they did, you'd stop needing answers from outside sources. You'd stop obeying. You'd stop chasing approval from systems designed to disempower you. You'd start trusting yourself. You'd start acting on the guidance of your own soul. And nothing scares them more than that. That's why dream journaling is one of the most rebellious spiritual acts you can take. Writing down your dreams is an act of defiance, a declaration that you remember, that you won't let the fog take hold, that your intuition matters more than their headlines. It's not just journaling, it's mapping your multi-dimensional identity. Each dream a breadcrumb, each symbol a key, each night a chapter in the book only you can read. And if you keep reading, something amazing happens. You start dreaming while awake. You start catching moments that feel too precise to be accidents. You see numbers repeating. You hear messages in songs. You speak things that manifest within days. Because your mind and your soul are now in sync. You're not just a person anymore. You're a conduit, a bridge between worlds. That's when you realize the real conspiracy isn't what they've done to your body, it's what they've done to your dreams. The way they've convinced you it was all nonsense. That's the theft. That's the erasure. Because without your dreams, you forget your story. You forget why you came here. You forget that you chose this life, this body, this timeline, not as punishment, but as a mission. And that mission didn't begin the day you were born. It began long before that. In realms your waking mind can barely comprehend, and it continues every night when you return to those realms to receive guidance, healing, and remembrance. So the next time you lay your head down, don't collapse. Prepare. Protect your energy. Set an intention. Speak to your higher self. Ask the question that's been burning in your heart, and then listen, not with your ears but with your soul. Because you will be answered. Maybe not with words, maybe not right away, but in signs, in symbols, in a dream that won't leave you alone until you follow it. And when you do, the world starts opening. It bends in your favor, it mirrors your clarity, because now you're not just living, You're remembering how to live as a being who dreams across dimensions. You're remembering who you are. There is a part of you that already knows everything I'm saying is true. It's not new information, it's ancient memory, buried beneath layers of distraction, indoctrination, and noise. But the truth has never left you. It speaks in the quiet moments, in the soft pulses of déjà vu, in the strange familiarity of a place you've never been, in the dreams that feel more like home than your waking life ever had. And once you begin to listen, really listen, it becomes louder. You start to see that sleep isn't passive. It's not just a break, it's not a pause in your story, it's the continuation of it behind the scenes. It's where you process what your waking mind can't handle. It's where you confront the shadows you ignore by day. It's where your soul pulls you aside and says, look, this is what's really going on. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it screams, but it always speaks. The question is, have you been listening? Think about how much of your life is spent sleeping. A third of your existence. That's not an accident. That's not waste. That's design. You were meant to return every night, not to rest but to realign, to remember the truth beneath the performance, to dissolve the illusions of the day and reconnect with the source. And that source isn't out there. It's not in the sky, it's within you. Always has been, you just forgot how to access it. You were trained to forget, but now you're starting to remember. There's something no scientist, no professor, no priest has ever been able to fully explain. Why some dreams predict the future. Why you can meet someone in a dream before you ever encounter them in waking life. Why you can receive messages from people who've passed on. Why you can go to sleep in one emotional state and wake up healed. These aren't anomalies, these are reminders. Evidence that your consciousness isn't local, that you are not just neurons and synapses and skin. You are a soul playing in a field far wider than you've been taught to believe. And when you dream, you leave the limits behind. You return to that field, the quantum field, the energetic field, the place where all timelines exist simultaneously and intention is the key to movement. That's why, in your dreams, you can fly. You can breathe underwater. You can walk through walls. You can speak to beings without opening your mouth, because you're not bound by physics. You're not bound by rules. You are experiencing reality in its rawest form. Thought becoming form, emotion becoming landscape, intention becoming destiny. And this forbidden book, it maps that landscape. It describes the places you've been going all along, but didn't have words for. Realms of color so intense they vibrate through your being. Structures made of sound and memory. Beings made of light who guide without speaking. Libraries that contain the records of your soul's journey. And yes, even darker zones, areas where unresolved energy lingers, where fear and attachment create dense environments that can feel heavy, confusing, even terrifying. But they're not there to harm you, they're there to teach you. They are echoes of your own unhealed energy, taking form so you can finally face it. Because that's what this journey is really about, healing, remembering, reclaiming the parts of yourself you've left scattered across dimensions, lifetimes, and experiences. And sleep is the bridge. It's how you find your way back. You were never supposed to fear the dark. You were meant to see through it, to walk into the dreamscape and say, "Show me what I need to see." That takes courage. That takes trust. But when you do it, something opens. The dream becomes lucid. The shadows become allies. And you become the master of your own inner universe. Lucid dreaming isn't just about flying around or doing cool tricks. It's a form of spiritual sovereignty. It's how you train your consciousness to stay awake, even when the world tells you to shut down. It's how you explore questions the physical realm can't answer. Who am I really? Why am I here? What contracts have I made? What is my next step? These are the kinds of questions that echo into your dreams and bring back answers dressed in symbolism, synchronicity, and soul-deep knowing. And when you start asking, you'll start receiving. But you have to act on it. You have to treat your dreams as real as anything else in your life because they are. In fact, they might be more real. The ancient traditions all said the same thing, that life is but a dream and we are the dreamers. The only difference between sleep and waking is the density of the illusion. You felt it, that shift when you realize your dream is trying to tell you something, that it wasn't random, that it was precise, that it was tailored to your soul's evolution, and you either brush it off or you pay attention. One of those choices opens the door, the other keeps it shut. And this door, it's always waiting. Every night it opens. Whether you walk through it with awareness or stumble blindly is your choice. But the more you choose awareness, the more you see what they never wanted you to see. That reality is flexible, that you are the creator, that the dream world is the training ground, the testing ground, and the truth disguised as sleep. You'll start noticing it everywhere. The moments between thoughts, the strange way reality bends around intention, the way your body reacts to energy before your mind catches up. You'll wake up and feel your dreams in your skin. You'll remember faces, names, colors that don't exist in this world, but that stir something ancient in your soul. You'll begin to live between the worlds, not in confusion, but in mastery. That's what they don't want. That's what they've been hiding from you. Because once you realize sleep is not escape but access, the illusion collapses, the fear dies, and with it the systems built on that fear. You stop fearing death, you stop fearing the unknown, you stop fearing the future, because you've seen what lies beyond, not through blind belief, but through direct experience. You've walked in it, you've floated through it, you've lived it, and now, finally, you're remembering. You've spent your whole life being told that dreams fade, that they vanish in the morning light. But what if that fading isn't natural? What if it's engineered? Because the longer you forget, the longer they stay in control. And the second you start remembering, really remembering, your power returns. You stop asking for permission. You stop seeking answers from the outside. Because you realize you already know, you've always known. That feeling you get when a dream leaves you haunted all day like a ghost of something real, that's not your imagination. That's your soul trying to pull you back to the truth. That the symbols in your dreams aren't random. They're messages from a part of you that never forgets. The part that watches you during the day, waiting for nightfall when it can finally speak. And when it does, it speaks in signs, in symbols, in scenes that look surreal but feel more honest than anything you've seen with your physical eyes. Because those scenes, they're not fiction, they're fragments, glimpses of the higher dimensions where your consciousness drifts each night, pieces of a puzzle you've been solving across lifetimes. That's why the Forbidden Book didn't just describe the dream world, it named it. Layered dimensions, planes of experience, each one more responsive to thought, more aligned to energy, more reflective of your inner state. And the more lucid you become, the more access you gain, the more responsibility, too, because in the astral there are no masks, only mirrors. You can't lie to yourself there, you can't pretend to be someone you're not. Everything you feel becomes your environment. Every fear becomes a shadow you must face. Every belief becomes a structure you walk through. So if you believe you're powerless, the realm responds in kind. But the moment you shift your belief, even in sleep, the entire world around you changes. That's how powerful you are. You don't just travel through dreams, you build them. And once you realize that, something inside you clicks. You remember the dreams you had as a child, before they taught you to doubt them. Before they said you were just imagining things. You remember the times you woke up crying, not from fear, but from leaving a place that felt more like home than this one. You remember the flying, the knowing, the glowing beings that told you things you couldn't explain. You remember the way it felt to be free. That freedom was never fantasy, it was memory. And now that you're waking up, you can begin to train, to not just fall asleep, but rise into the realms with purpose. You can start setting intentions before you close your eyes. You can begin to speak to the deeper parts of your being, to ask for guidance, healing, insight. and you'll get it. Not always how you expect, but always exactly how you need. You may start meeting guides. Some may look like people you've known. Others may appear as pure energy, as animals, as ancestors. But you'll know them, not with your eyes, but with your soul. You'll feel a resonance, a remembrance, a gravity that tells you this is real. And as you listen, they will show you more. They might show you past lives, scenes that help explain the wounds you've carried into this life. They might show you future timelines, possibilities waiting for you to claim them. They might take you into places where souls gather between incarnations, where healing happens, where choices are made, where contracts are written and rewritten in light. And none of this is fantasy. Because if even one night you wake up and bring back a truth so deep it shifts the way you live, then the dream wasn't fake. The change it caused proves it was real. If a dream can show you something you had no way of knowing, and then that thing happens, that's not a coincidence. That's contact. With your higher self, with your guides, with the source itself. You were never meant to sleep through that. You were meant to become a traveler, a watcher, a lucid soul moving between dimensions, not in fear, but in mastery. And that's why this truth has been hidden for so long, because people who master sleep become ungovernable. You can't sell fear to someone who walks through death each night and returns stronger. You can't chain a mind that knows how to fly. You can't enslave a soul that remembers it is eternal. That's what the systems fear most, not your rebellion, but your awakening. So they distract you, they give you pills, they push routines that keep you disconnected from your inner world. They flood your mind with noise so that your sleep becomes just another form of unconsciousness. And they laugh when you forget your dreams, because they know that's when you're most vulnerable. But the moment you reclaim your nights, everything changes. The programming starts to wear off, the fear begins to dissolve, you start making different choices, not because someone told you to, but because your soul knows better. You begin to align with your true self, and that alignment doesn't just affect you, it ripples. Because when one person remembers, they shine, and when they shine, others notice. They start to question, to reflect, to wake up. This is how it spreads, not through force, but through frequency. And your frequency? It shifts the moment you take sleep seriously. The moment you understand that each night is not downtime but divine time. Time to heal, time to reconnect. Time to receive downloads from realms that operate outside of language and logic. Time to remember that you are not here to merely survive, you are here to evolve, to awaken, to dream, and to bring those dreams back as gifts to this waking world. Because that's the ultimate purpose of sleep, to bridge the two, to travel across the unseen and return with light, to shine it into the places that have gone dim, to live your waking life with the wisdom of a soul who never sleeps. You've been taught to see dreams as shadows, when in reality they are light filtered through your soul. They are coded messages, written in a language older than words. And once you learn how to read that language, you'll never see yourself, or this world, the same way again. Because everything you've been looking for out there was always waiting for you in here. In the stillness. In the silence, in the space behind your eyes, when the body sleeps but the self awakens. There's a reason you've had those moments, the ones that felt like revelations in the middle of the night, when you woke up and just knew something had changed, like something invisible had rearranged your path while you slept. That wasn't just a feeling, that was your soul realigning you, correcting course, delivering a message from a part of you that sees the bigger picture, the part of you that's always awake. And the more you honor that inner voice, the more guidance you receive, the more dreams become clear, vivid, full of motion and meaning. You start to realize they've always been trying to tell you something. They were never nonsense. They were maps, blueprints, prophecies disguised as stories. And when you begin to treat them that way, when you journal them, decode them, meditate on them, you unlock a relationship with your higher self that no book, no teacher, no system can give you. Because your dreams are tailored to your soul, no one else can interpret them for you, not fully. The symbols may be ancient, yes, but the meanings, they're personal. A staircase might mean something different to you than to someone else. A recurring person might not represent them. It might represent a feeling, a wound, or even a version of yourself that's begging to be acknowledged. This is a dialogue between you and the infinite, and the only way to understand it is to listen. And if you're brave enough to listen, really listen, you'll start to notice something strange. The boundary between waking and dreaming begins to blur. You'll start to catch glimpses of the dream state while you're fully awake. That moment when a day feels too perfectly timed to be random. That sudden download of insight that comes out of nowhere. That deep knowing that something is about to happen, and then it does. These aren't coincidences, they're signs that you're integrating, that the dreamer is waking up inside the dream. Because what they never told you is that this world is another dream. It's just thicker, slower, more stable, but it's still governed by the same rules, by thought, by belief, by intention. And the more lucid you become in sleep, the more lucid you become in life. You realize you can rewrite the narrative, you can shift outcomes, you can dissolve fear like fog under sunlight. Not because you're escaping reality, but because you finally see what it is. You start living like someone who remembers what the rest of the world has forgotten. That death isn't the end. That time isn't linear. That healing doesn't require years. It requires presence. That everything you've ever needed to evolve already exists within you. And that the journey, the real one, doesn't begin at birth or end at death. It begins the moment you wake up to yourself. The moment you reclaim your nights. The moment you say, no more forgetting. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to retreat to the mountains. You don't have to spend years in silence. You just have to be willing to pay attention. To give your dream life the same reverence you give the waking one. To go to bed like a traveler, preparing to enter sacred ground. Because you are. And the moment you treat sleep with that kind of sacredness, the universe responds. The answers come. You start meeting pieces of yourself you didn't know were missing. The confident version, the wise version, the version that never forgot. They show up to remind you what it feels like to live without the weight, to create without resistance, to move through life like a being who doesn't need permission to shine. Because once you've seen who you are in the dream, it's hard to pretend to be small in the waking. And you don't just shift internally. The external begins to move too. People leave who were never meant to stay. New ones arrive who speak your soul's language. Opportunities present themselves in perfect timing. Synchronicity stops being rare and becomes your norm. Because you're not aligned with the illusion anymore, you're aligned with the design. The deeper current pulling you toward your purpose. And your dreams, they become the compass. They begin to guide your relationships, your choices, your creativity. You start creating from your soul, not your ego. You stop chasing. You start magnetizing, because now you're not guessing, you're listening. And in that listening, you become a master of your own energy. And if you stay with it, if you keep honoring the dream world, if you keep choosing intention over autopilot, something miraculous happens. You begin to experience what the ancients called the double awakening, not just waking up inside your dreams, but waking up inside your life. You begin to lucid dream in the daytime. You see the patterns, the stories, the illusions playing out around you, and instead of being trapped by them, you move through them like someone who knows they're in a simulation, not to escape, but to elevate. You become the dreamer and the dreamed. You become the architect and the avatar. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You become the version of yourself that your soul has been trying to lead you to all along. And once you reach that state, the forbidden book doesn't feel forbidden anymore, it feels familiar. Because the truth is, it was never lost. It was written inside you, line by line, night by night, whispered back to you every time you slept and surrendered. You were never meant to forget, you were always meant to remember. You were always meant to remember. To unlock the gateways that open the moment your eyes close. Not as escape, but as revelation. And once you see that, you can never go back to seeing sleep the same way again. You begin to cherish it, protect it, You start preparing for it like you would a sacred ceremony. Because now you know, every night is an initiation, every dream is a message, every moment you spend between dimensions is a chance to bring something holy back with you. And that's what they've worked so hard to make you forget. That you are the bridge, that you are the translator of unseen wisdom into physical form, that your life is not random, that your patterns, your challenges, your dreams, they're all part of a much larger story unfolding across timelines. And you are the one who came here to remember the script, to write the new chapter, to break the loop. You are not a passive participant in this world. You are not a background character in someone else's narrative. You are the lucid soul who chose to enter the simulation wide awake. And even if you've forgotten that, especially if you've forgotten that, it's because you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now, waking up, word by word, dream by dream, breath by breath. There's a reason the masters spent lifetimes studying the in-between states, the hypnagogic, the hypnopompic, the liminal thresholds where your consciousness hovers between form and formlessness. These are not insignificant. These are access points, portals, moments where you are closest to the truth of your being. And if you learn to hold awareness in those moments, even for a few seconds, you open the door wider. It might start as a flash, a color, a presence, a sensation of moving without moving. Don't dismiss it. Don't label it as just a dream or just a trick of the brain. That's the programming talking. That's the voice of a world afraid of your awakening. Trust the subtle. Honor the quiet. Because the soul does not shout, it whispers. And in those whispers, entire universes are revealed. You'll notice the shift in your body, in your energy. You'll feel lighter when you wake up. Even after just a few hours of sleep, you'll feel more grounded during the day, more guided, more protected. You'll start to attract people who see you, not just your face, not just your name, but you, the you that's been hidden behind the masks, the you that's been waiting for someone to say, I see you beyond this world. And when that happens, something clicks. Your life becomes less about survival and more about expression. You stop asking what you should do and start asking who you really are. You stop seeking validation and start embodying your truth. You stop fearing uncertainty and start trusting the unknown. Because you've been there, you've walked those realms, you've seen what waits beyond the veil, and now you bring that vision into everything you touch. You start creating differently, speaking differently, moving through the world like someone who carries secret knowledge, not as arrogance, but as calm, as inner fire, as peace that doesn't need to prove itself. And that peace, it's magnetic, it's contagious. It ripples through your relationships, your work, your presence. People feel it without knowing why. They're drawn to you not because of what you do, but because of what you are, a living bridge between dimensions. And this is what the Forbidden Book was trying to protect. Not information, but transformation. Not words, but frequency. The kind of frequency that can't be faked. The kind of knowing that can't be memorized. It has to be lived. It has to be earned in the silence of the night, in the journeys no one sees, in the moments you choose awareness over amnesia. You are already doing it. The fact that you're here means you've begun. You've answered the call. You've stepped into the mystery, and no matter how strange, how surreal, how uncomfortable your dreams may become, they are part of the unfolding, they are part of the return. Every fear faced, every message decoded, every glimpse into the beyond, it's all a thread pulling you closer to your original self. And your original self is not afraid. It does not question its worth. It does not doubt its path. It knows that this life is not a punishment. It is a mission, a chance to anchor light into density, a chance to take what you learn in the realms of spirit and manifest it into matter. And your dreams, they are the blueprint, the spiritual architecture behind your waking existence. You can access them anytime. You don't need a title. You don't need permission. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing. Willing to remember, willing to face what shows up in the dark, willing to trust your own soul more than you trust the noise of the world. Because the world will always try to convince you to stay asleep, to doubt what you feel, to silence what you know. But you don't have to listen anymore. You've seen too much. You've felt too deeply. You've heard the call too clearly, and now there is no turning back. You don't want to turn back, because what waits for you is everything you came here to find. Truth, power, freedom, alignment. A life that is not just dreamed at night, but lived during the day. A reality that bends to your frequency because your frequency is no longer fragmented. It's whole, it's sovereign, it's awake. And that awakening, it begins every night when you close your eyes. You've made it to the edge of forgetting, and now you're stepping into remembering. This is where everything changes. Because once you understand that sleep is not a break from life but a deeper layer of it, your nights become your training ground, not for rest, but for evolution, for alignment, for initiation into the mystery that has always surrounded you, waiting for you to notice. This is why the ancient teachings spoke so reverently about the night, why mystics prayed before bed, why sages taught dream control, why prophets received visions in their sleep. They weren't escaping reality. They were tapping into the blueprint behind it. They were slipping through the cracks of the illusion and pulling wisdom from the place where truth lives untamed and untouched, the place where consciousness roams free. That place is open to you, it always has been. No gatekeeper, no key required, just awareness, just intention, just a willingness to surrender your illusions and step into your own soul. Every night is an invitation, and when you start treating it like one, you're not just sleeping anymore. You're traveling, you're communing. And creation is the highest form of remembering. When you bring back insights from the other side and shape them into art, into speech, into presence, you're building bridges. You're allowing others to feel what you've seen, to remember what they've forgotten. You become a mirror, a transmitter, a spark. And that spark is what changes the collective, not through force, not through argument, but through embodiment, through the quiet power of someone who walks through life with a light in their eyes and a stillness in their spirit. Someone who has seen beyond the veil and now carries that knowing in every word they speak, every room they enter, every breath they take. That's the role you step into when you reclaim your dreams, when you stop dismissing them as random and start understanding them as sacred. You become the lighthouse in a world that forgot it was lost at sea. And you don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to live it, fully, authentically, consciously. Because this isn't about learning something new. This is about unlearning the lie. The lie that you're just flesh, just mind, just a bystander in a universe too big to understand. You are not a bystander. You are the observer, the dreamer, the experiencer and the creator. And you access that truth each time you close your eyes with intention and surrender to the realms within. That's what they've tried to keep from you. Not because the knowledge is too dangerous, but because it's too liberating. Because when you stop fearing the unknown, you stop clinging to control. When you stop doubting yourself, you stop following blindly. When you remember who you are, you remember that this life isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. And the real shift, it begins when you stop waiting for permission to access the mystery. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be present, to lay your head down with reverence, to open yourself before you drift, to listen when the symbols speak, and to act when the truth becomes too loud to ignore. Because the truth will find you. It already has. In the dreams you couldn't forget. In the voices that called your name, in the visions that left you changed. That was never fantasy, that was a wake-up call. And now, here you are, awake. Not because someone told you the truth, but because you felt it. In your bones, in your blood, in the stillness between your thoughts. The forbidden book was never locked away in some dusty library. It was hidden in plain sight, in your dreams, in your memories. In the quiet knowing that rises when the world gets quiet enough to hear it. You are the book. You are the secret. You are the one who came here to remember. And now that you feel it coursing through you like electricity, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee what you've seen, and you were never meant to. You were meant to bring it forward, to live with it, to let it shape your choices, your vision, your voice. So the next time you fall asleep, do it with your eyes open, not physically, but spiritually. Speak to your soul. Speak to the ones who wait for you on the other side of the veil. Set the intention to meet your guides, to heal, to explore, to download the pieces you need to rise. And when you wake up, write, reflect, trust. Your nights are no longer wasted. Your dreams are no longer forgotten. Your sleep is no longer unconscious. You've broken the spell. And now, every time your eyes close, you're not entering darkness. You're entering the source. You're entering you. You've remembered. Now, dream accordingly.